In Nikola Vucevic's recent comments about this may be the last chance for the Chicago Bulls core, he also mentioned how the team would like to play more up-tempo. We're going to talk about why that is probably the best bet for the Chicago Bulls team and what's the biggest things holding them back from playing and being a more up-tempo team. Plus, we're going to get into the mailbag. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. You guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And one of the things that, was kind of what I missed, right? In talking about, I focused so much on Nikola Vucevic and him saying that this is the last chance for this core and what that could mean. In that interview with Yahoo Sports, he also pointed out how he would like to play. He thinks that the team is better when they play more up-tempo. We also talk about just how much the team has missed Lonzo Ball since he went down and how much that really has changed how they had to play. Now, I had a video on it probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point saying that I would like to see the Bulls play a more up-tempo style, especially with that bench unit, considering they don't have the best shooters on that. But when you get somebody like Nikola Vucevic, who's also not the quickest player, right, but has talked about how important and how much better the team is when they play up-tempo, I think that is something to look at, right? And so when Lonzo Ball was here, right, the Bulls pushed more paces with his ability to pass. Like you guys have, I'm sure, all seen the highlight where he passes it half court from an inbounds play, right? Lonzo Ball and what he brought to this team was that they naturally played a little bit more up-tempo, right? And I think that the team's style as well, like it changed, not that it took on the identity of Lonzo Ball, but Lonzo being the type of player he is where, Lonzo brought fun to the court on the Chicago Bulls team. And while he wasn't like the vocal leader, like a Pat Bev came in and was telling people, no, you're going to do this, the way that Lonzo Ball kind of ran the offense specifically in transition and helped get the Bulls out in transition with his defense, it made the Bulls a naturally a little bit more up-tempo team. Now, I think when you have players like Zach LaVine, when you have players like Patrick Williams, when you have players, even though Patrick Williams isn't the best lateral quickness, he is front to back pretty quick on that. When you have players like a Kobe White, I would assume like playing more up-tempo can absolutely help this team. Now, yesterday we talked about playing inside out with Nikola Vucevic, which in the half court you absolutely want to do. But if this team is going to be a better defensive team, get more deflections, force more turnovers, that type of thing, playing more up-tempo could come naturally via that. Now, one of the things holding the team back from being up-tempo like they were back then is the fact that they just have not had a point guard the type of Lonzo Ball. Yes, Pat Bev came in and he did great things, right? He did good things in solid teams for this team to help this team kind of maximize the talent that they had here. And that's why it's important to notice that a average point guard in the league had this team playing much better. Now, we need to play even better than that if we want to get to the areas that we want to get to, but I do think that this team playing a more up-tempo style can absolutely help them, but it's how they play the more up-tempo style. You have a player in DeMar DeRozan that is going to be the 1 or 2 in shots per game for you, even though there's been some speculation, shout out to Tony Gill, on like that DeMar DeRozan is willing to take more of a backseat if it comes to win, if it means winning, right? But DeMar isn't the best off ball. He's not the best in up-tempo offense. That's just not where DeMar's strengths are, right? And so you're still going to have some of the more times that you slow it down. You're still going to have a very potent half-court offense to still get the best out of a player like DeMar and Vooch for that matter as well, even though Vooch as the trailer in a more up-tempo style can work as well. But this Bulls team, this goes back to the thing that we've been talking about. The Bulls have to establish their on-court identity. We know who the Bulls are off the court. There are a lot of good guys who do good things, who love the game of basketball, who put in the work, things like that. But on your on-court identity and what this team is going to be has to start coming together early, right? And I think even when you look at some of the acquisitions that the Bulls have made in the offseason, Julian Phillips, Ornalot Biddum, right? While they may not be a big part of the Chicago Bulls rotation immediately, that still points to a more up-tempo style offense that are going to benefit the most out of those players eventually. Now, it comes down to as well, you have to ask, is Billy Donovan going to run a more up-tempo style? And I think we've seen instances over Billy Donovan's career where the teams move a little bit faster. So even though I am a Billy Donovan critic and I'm not the biggest fan of Billy Donovan, I do think that is something that his coaching style would allow for, but you have to have the personnel to do it. And you have to have the team identity to do it. And that identity has to be made on rebounding the ball well. On top of that, forcing turnovers, playing good half-court defense. That is what we need to see. And Javon Carter, while not the set him up, I'm about to just assist and facilitate type point guard, he can do some of that. But you have passers on this team that you can also do some of that stuff with as well. So we'll end up seeing, I think the combination of moving to a more up-tempo style offense, it in reality, right? You don't want to just to run, but then also when you do go half court, operate through Vooch a little bit more. I think the combination of those two things could really help modernize that Bulls offense, even while DeMar DeRozan is still here, right? And still a big part of that. But this is the year that they have to make that move. This is the year that they have to show it. And hopefully in that desperation, which is maybe lack of, for a better word, they take that offense to the next level. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. But it is Sunday, so that means that we are going to get into the mailbag. We're going to go ahead and play the first voicemail now.
Hey, this is Brendan from Columbus, Georgia. I'm just going to talk about the topic you and Captain Zyler were talking about earlier, whether or not Andre Drummond was a Hall of Famer, and should I be going to a Hall of Fame simply because of his rebounding, because of, just one stat. And that got me thinking, if that is a disqualifying option, then should Dennis Rodman be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, he did a lot more than just rebounding, but it doesn't really show up in the stats. I mean, he was a high energy guy, great defense. When he wasn't doing crazy stuff, he was, really one of the best teammates you could have. But like I said, when you go to the stat line, rebounding was it for him. He wasn't, blocking shots, getting steals, making assists, and jump shots. So I just want to ask your opinion on that matter. Thanks.
All right, so that was Reginald. And Dennis Rodman, okay, here's the thing. Dennis Rodman was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2011. And the thing that we talked about with Andre Drummond isn't just because he's just, well, as far as him maybe, my point on him not being in Hall of Famer is that you have to have more accolades. Dennis Rodman is a multiple-time NBA champion, right? And played a huge role in a team winning, right? The thing with Drummond isn't just to say, oh, you're a great rebounder. Is that going to be enough to get you in the Hall of Fame? I don't think any one stat does that. But I think you also have to have accolades. And I don't mean all-star, because all-star is fan voting. I mean all NBA teams, which he has all defensive team, I believe. But then, when you look at the win percentage of the teams that he's been on, it hasn't been the best, right? And yes, that goes more than just him. But even when you compare him to a player like Joakim Noah absolutely impacted the Chicago Bulls winning. Joakim Noah was a facilitator at time from the center position. Joakim Noah was one of the best rebounders in the game of basketball at that time and was a pretty damn good rim protector. When it comes down to it, even comparing Andre Drummond to Dennis Rodman, for me, I can't do it, because Dennis Rodman, yes, he's already a Hall of Famer. And yes, if you look at his game, at the stat line, you're going to say, oh, he was just an amazing rebounder. But we know Dennis Rodman was so much more important than that. His switchability at that point in time as a big in that version of the NBA would be astronomical now, right? Dennis Rodman absolutely impacted winning on a high level that I don't know if we've seen Andre Drummond do consistently. And again, I don't want to put a team's win-loss on just one player, because that's not what I'm saying. Andre Drummond isn't that generational talent that you're just going to look at like that's just going to get you go out there and win you 30 games that season. But for Drum's comments on being a Hall of Famer and to be based about rebounding, yes, you have been an amazing rebounder. But a lot of those rebounds also are on your own missed shots, right? That wasn't Dennis. So I don't like the Dennis comparison to Andre Drummond. I don't like them even being mentioned in the same breath personally. But you guys can let me know what you think. Maybe I'm a little bit off my rocker. I am old. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? It's Shay. Everybody's been talking about us getting Doug McDermott, and I'm here to say, in terms of trading for him, hell motherfucking no. Look, I like Doug McDermott. He's a good scorer off the bench and all that, but think about it. We already that's basically a Kobe White from 4 years ago. Brother, if he's not scoring, he doesn't give you too much of anything, and Doug McDermott is a little bit older in his 30s now. And don't get me wrong, he could help us off the bench, but man, besides Quan, what else does he bring us? The way I see it, you could get him in free agency this coming off season, especially if Lonzo Ball's money come up off the books and we don't bring DeRozan back. So I don't know about us trading for Doug McDermott. Now, if he gets bought out, on the other hand, yeah, now most definitely, let's do it. But, I mean, he's on last year of his deal. He's on the last year of his deal. And then, too, with the Spurs, who knows? He might even get bought out. That's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Listen, so Petty Roosevelt's going to come out a little bit, especially in the last voicemail today. But, Shay, stop saying you've heard everyone. You heard. It was one article that me and Pat then talked about on Locked On Bulls. You ain't heard a lot of nobody talking about trading for Doug McDermott. You ain't heard that, bro. Like, just say, hey, I read the article. This is my thought on it. And like me and Pat said, then, like, Doug McDermott does bring, well, Pat was more for bringing Doug McDermott on. Like, Doug McDermott makes one and a half, almost 2 3-pointers per game. For $15 million, $14 million, I'm not paying that for 2 3-pointers per game. I'm just not. So, Dougie has turned himself into a very much more consistent player since he left the Chicago Bulls, as a lot of players do, unfortunately. But I'm not willing to give up assets. Like it'll be different if you can acquire him with the mid-level exception and keep it pushing. But like, I'm not willing to get, like, even if the Chicago Bulls come in and maybe Torrey Craig and Javon Carter's 3-point shooting isn't what I hope and think it's going to be, I'm still not willing to pay that price tag. We are paying collectively less for Javon Carter and Torrey Craig, almost over the value of the totality of their contracts, right? Than what you would pay for 1 year of Doug McDermott, and all he brings is shooting. He's improved as a defender. Do not get me wrong. Solid passer now as well within the scheme of the game. But again, that's San Antonio. I'm not paying no $14 million for no Doug McDermott in 2023, the year of our Lord. Not doing it. Not doing it. I'd rather listen to the Ultimate Rage's hip-hop album than do that, personally. That's just my personal opinion. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Mr. Homeboy.
What's going on, man? It's Mr. Homeboy. Man, I had a question. So I know that the Bulls have all those exceptions and stuff like that with cap salary and things of that nature to maybe make a big move if they're doing good and things of that nature. So who do you think I'm not sure if this is more of a based off of what the flaws are if they are doing good, but what would be like a key piece to bring along to the team to maybe take them over the hump? I'm not sure if this question only could be answered if, I guess, wait until they play. Maybe they're doing good, but maybe they need size or something like that, and maybe that's what they look out for. Maybe that would be the question where maybe you have to go and see. But my question is, what type of players will you think will, if the Chicago Bulls are doing good, will make sense? Like, what 1-year deals will make sense for them to go out and trade? But yeah, that's my only question. All right, man. I'll tap in later.
Great question here. Great question. What should the Bulls add with their exceptions? Here's the thing. You said this in your voicemail. I don't really know yet, because you could look at point guard, right? If you need some of that traditional half-court point guard play, that's just like if Javon Carter doesn't end up being that, but even then, I don't know if you want to spend more money on that position, right? At this point where you may want to wait till a player becomes a free agent. Keep in mind, you can only acquire a player in the last year of their deal via trade or sign somebody to a 1-year deal with the disabled player exception. But we have to see how this team, because this team is set, right? Yeah, they could possibly waive Carlik Jones, which I think may happen by that guaranteed date or something like that. But then are you looking at bringing up Onulap Bidham, right? Or are you looking for more size? That could be something that the Bulls are also looking for towards the end of this season. So those type of things play a part in it. And I think at this point, I'd rather see what identity this team takes and then what the holes are on this team, and then look around, survey around the trade deadline, and then try to see how best you can fill that void on that team. So I'm not point guard comes to mind if you're asking me to answer now. Some more legitimate size coming off the bench as well. But even then, are you paying $10.5 million for that? So I'm more so looking for, if the Bulls do use that disabled player exception, to fill something majorly, right? Or to acquire for a player that they are probably going to then look to re-sign in the offseason as well. So I can't really judge it yet, but, shooting's always going to be a thing that we can add for. I would say this, if you're talking about just type of player, I would like the Bulls to two-way player that defends and can do some scoring, right? Scoring or shooting, where they're a scorer or a shooter, that's kind of what I like to see added to this Bulls team, because I think especially, Kobe can if Kobe does end up being the starter, then you need that even more coming off the bench. Even if Kobe does end up being off the bench, you can always use a little bit more defense and some shooting or some scoring in that case. So that's kind of the place where my brain goes to. But right now, I would rather try to evaluate this team over the first 20, 25 games before we start talking about what this team may need. Yeah, on paper, we can see it, but let's see how Torrey Craig and Javon Carter play. Let's see if any, like Patrick Williams and his development, Kobe and his development, like what that really brings to this team. And we'll see. I also think that Ayo Dosunmu is going to be a player that, if he does get minutes, is going to be more naturally aligned to his skill set, because he's going to be coming off the bench, and we could see that as well. So let's wait and see. Ask me that again 20 games into the season, though, brother. Keep that in. Put a pin in that. Send that voicemail again in 20 games after the season starts. But let's get into the last voicemail for today. And this one I'm probably going to go in on. This one's from Casual Kelder.
Okay, I got a comp for you here. And this might shock you, but I think it's a positive one. I'm going to compare Zach LaVine to a Hall of Famer. Okay, I think his career path is basically Ray Allen. If you remember Ray Allen, he started off big scorer. Was on some decent teams, some good teams. Was a high scoring, high athletic, good shooter. Really, really, really good player. Who, for whatever reason, because my theory is high scoring shooting guards who don't do much else aren't really the way to build a team. And that was Ray Allen. He was a high scoring shooting guard. Did not play that much defense, wasn't a playmaker. Basically, he was a bucket getter. Very valuable. But his team in Milwaukee and in Seattle, gradually, moved on because they were going for, different things. Ray Allen got his, championships when he went to, other teams like Boston and Miami. He was a third or fourth option. I think that's Zach LaVine right there. He's a high usage, high scoring guard who doesn't do much else. He's not a playmaker, really decent playmaker. He's not terrible, but, not someone that you count on to do it. Not a defender. We can all kind of agree on that. He's gotten a little better, I know, but, he's not a defender. He makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, a ton of mistakes in the half court defense. I think once he gets to be, towards the end of his contract, he'll go either on Chicago. Maybe Chicago gets a couple guys in that can let him be a supporting guy, or to another team, and he could do very well if he goes to a team that's in contention. So anyway, that's me talking here. I'm thinking that Ray Allen is a good comp for LaVine. I think LaVine is Ray 2.0. Maybe if he can, get to a spot where he can concentrate on what he's good at, which is scoring. I mean, and then I'll have enough other people, two-way guys, playmakers, to help him out. That's got to be the goal with him. I don't know if the Bulls have that. Well, I know they don't have it now, but maybe they can get that in the future. What do you think?
All right, so this is, more than any other voicemail, proves that Kelder is not only a casual, but he doesn't actually watch or understand the game of basketball very well. To say that Ray Allen was the third or fourth option on that Boston Celtics team, the year that they won the title, KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen all averaged right under 14 shots per game. It was, for KG, for example, 3.7. For 3.9 for KG. For Pierce, 3.7. For Ray Allen, I said 3. See, now I'm going in. Kelder got me pissed off. For Paul Pierce, he averaged 13.7 shots per game. Kevin Garnett averaged 13.9 shots per game. Ray Allen averaged 13.5 shots per game. Where's the third option at, brother? Where's the third option at? The difference, that is what made that team so special, was the balance. So right there, you saying that Ray Allen was the third or fourth option and that's when he found success is fucking stupid, to just be quite frank. That's stupid. And then also to compare Ray Allen to Zach LaVine, do you watch these guys play, or do you just look at stats? Because there's nothing similar about their games that they play on the basketball court at all. And then as far as the caliber of player, if you want to say that, yeah, Ray Allen's teams did struggle when he was kind of the main piece at times in the places that he went, in Milwaukee and Seattle, I can understand that. But they are so vastly different players that to make that comparison is borderline asinine and stupidity. I'm sorry. It just was. Now, maybe you are a new basketball fan and you only saw Ray Allen when he played with the Miami Heat, and that's why you can say that. But Come on, man. To say that Ray Allen was only a shooter too, like, yes, that was his primary and greatest skill. But we can't act like we didn't have years of Ray Allen averaging 5-6 assists per game, right? On teams that really didn't have much else around him. So him giving that type of effort was huge for it, right? Come on, man. Yes, Ray Allen was never a lockdown defender either, but let's be clear here. Ray Allen, for his career has a 108 defensive rating, my brother. Like, what are you talking about, Kelder? What you got it? Listen, that's it. That was it. That did it. Keep in mind, Ray Allen has more sub 105 defensive rating seasons, which defensive rating isn't everything, right? I want to be clear on that. But more than that, than games that Zach LaVine has had at sub 1. You gotta stop, bro. Like, this is absolutely, clearly, unequivocally, until you can up your actual basketball knowledge. While I love the fact that you support the show, and I love the fact that you do fantasy sports, and I think you're trying to view actual sports through a fantasy lens. Listen, I rock with you, brother, and your fantasy sports knowledge is on point. I cannot take away from that. But when you try to talk about the actual game of basketball, it sounds worse than my 4-year-old, which I don't even have a 4-year-old, my imaginary 4-year-old, or when my son was 4, talking about the game of basketball at a high level. You got to stop. You got to drop down, stop looking at stat sheets, stop going to ESPN, stop looking at box scores, and watch some fucking basketball, bro. Go down, sit in a game, sit your ass in a seat, take notes because you need to, and then come back and we can review your notes as a family. I'm going to check your homework like I have to do my children because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Chill the fuck out, bro. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like we like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.